Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the Waste Management Phoenix Open. This is my DFS preview show and my best bet show. And yes, this is my favorite tournament of the year that is not a major. It is raucous, as you can see. You get the best fields. Last year, we didn't have a whole lot of fans. I think it was like 5,000. This year, it'll be packed. And it ties with, of course, Super Bowl Sunday, where you can parlay some bets. So all in all, it's a party waiting to happen. I'm excited. Of course, I've got a lot for you guys. We're going to break down, of course, what we just saw at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. I'm going to give you all the models and analysis to get your brain start thinking about who you might want to play from a DFS side. And, of course, I'm going to give you my favorite bets at the end. The high odds ones that we want to get in ASAP because, of course, as money gets in on them, they will change in odds. All right, with that said, let's talk some golf. All right, so real quick, recapping the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, you had Tom Hoge, which a lot of you might think, well, we didn't see this coming, but there was a lot of things telling us that this was coming, and I'll go over a few. So real quickly, if you look at, of course, he was one of my picks. He was actually in my top 10. I think he was my 6th pick going in. And if you look over here, of course, from a betting perspective, this is a dream come true, right? I mean, when you see a guy going 4th, miscut, 2nd, miscut, and then, of course, a win, which you don't know, is screaming, bet me. Either I'm going to be top 5 or win, or I'm going to miss the cut, and that's great. From a DFS perspective, it's a little more iffy, but from a betting perspective, it makes total sense. And then also, if you kind of look over his history at the course, and it kept alive, right? I mentioned to you guys that at the AT&T, typically guys that have top 20 in the previous year, or you needed at least a top 20 at some time and had course history, typically win this event. And then as you can see here, that happened last year. He had a 12th. This isn't in order, but he had a 60th the year before, a 41st, a 39th. So he had history there. And of course, just like a Luke Liss, and we also got a Harold Varner, we're going to talk about. We got a lot of these guys that have, had 200 events under their belt without a win, and then they finally break through. I mean, Tom had some wins on the mini tours. I think he had a win on the Canadian tour, but of course, this was his first PGA win. And I'm excited. And to be honest, I was hoping that anybody that was up there in the top 10 would win over Cantlay and Spieth. And the reason why is those guys needed a lot more than a Cantlay or Spieth. They're not hurting. Their career is fine. And also from a betting perspective, of course, it makes a lot. Now, funny enough, I wasn't super in on Hoge or Bo Hostler from a showdown perspective that day. I was kind of expecting them to do what I've seen over and over and over to kind of fade back. But overall, it worked out for me. I mean, I told you guys early on, for my early bets, I had Tom Hoge 65-1. So that was a nice payout, right? I hit in the first event, which I call the first event, Tournament of Champions. We hit Cam Smith. And then I just missed on that Russ Henley bet. Of course, he lost in the playoff to Hideki. And then it kind of went a little south. I didn't see Swafford coming. Just that was not who I was on. And so it was nice to get back on track. Hopefully you guys did too. All right, now let's kind of switch gears just a little bit. I always tell you guys who I played for my one and done. Who I ended up on was, of course, Matt McNeely with his past experience here, living here. The good news, he made the cut. He ended up, I believe, at T33. So wasn't the greatest week. I mean, they didn't show a lot of Mav on PGA Live or on coverage of the golf shot. I honestly don't know if I saw one golf shot from Matt McNeely. So, but what I could see going on, he was spraying it a little bit. His short game wasn't there. He wasn't making the putts. I mean, it just wasn't the Mav that we typically see on this course. But I was hoping that, what we knew he could do on Pebble Beach, that he would make a charge. I think he shot 1 under on Sunday. So, like I said, it could have been worse, could have been better. The guy that, for a while that I was really upset, who was on my top 5 from a one and done, or my 5 guys that I was looking at from a one and done. I think the list, if I remember off the top of my head, you had Jason Day with his experience, and he did all right. I mean, better than what Mav did. But Seamus Power was on there, and it would have been a great place to play Seamus. And I was a little upset, but, it's crazy that Seamus went out, set a 54-hole record, and was shooting 16 under after leaving Spyglass and Pebble Beach, going to Monterey. And I think everybody, from an analyst perspective, all the media, was like, this is over. I mean, if he just would have went out and shot, look, if he had just shot 3 under, it could have held that, and shot even on Sunday, he'd have been in a playoff. I mean, he shoots 4 under, which guys were doing, that were terrible. Were ripping up Monterey. So that was crazy. What I did get to see, he kind of mentioned that he really likes Spyglass. So if you making mental notes or take down notes, he loves the sight lines. He really enjoys that course. He hasn't done that great on Pebble Beach, that course, but I mean, it was a different game that Seamus was playing. So, long story short, it was crazy that he did not end up winning. I was pulling for the guy. I like him. I've been on him for a while. And yeah, so hopefully we keep an eye on him. Of course, he's going to be at the Waste Management. Might not be a bad play. And then I got Harold Varno down here, which, this is his first win on the PGA Tour since 2016. I guess if you consider the Australian Open, that was his first win. And that was in a strong field, right? That was on the Asian Tour. You had guys that he just squeaked out over Bubba Watson, but you had all the big boys there. So good for HV3 to get that win. And he's also playing at the Waste Management. So another thing we got to think about is a lot of these guys are going to be flying back and have some jet lag, possibly. So, there's going to be that narrative and kind of a path that you have to think about. Do you want to take some of these guys, even Bubba Watson, who I'm guessing that's his first tournament of the year, which was overseas. But Bubba has done very well at this track and has a good history here. So we got to kind of figure out if we want to take the risk on some of the guys that might be a little jet lag, maybe not get the practice in. And I don't think it's switched to practice. It's just getting settled and getting back, of course, on the time zone that they're in. So anyways, the last thing I'll note, and I'm going to be doing this for you guys because I think it's relative, is also telling you what's going on in the DP World Tour. Just so you keep it, when these guys pop up over on the PGA Tour, that you're not totally blindsided on, if you see their name and don't know who they are. But of course, Nikolai Horgaard, I actually, funny enough, put a bet. Now, I was Saturday morning waiting, early on for Pebble Beach or the PGA Live to kick on. And I saw that Nikolai was, I think at this time, he was like 4 or 5 back. David Law went out and shot a crazy like 63 or something like that on, like I said, after day 2, I believe it was. So anyways, I'm watching Nikolai. He reminds me a lot of a Hovland. He can crash the ball off the tee. He's very accurate, pretty good with the irons. His short game's a little suspicious. And it's, of course, whatever the putter does. So long story short, he won. And I had a little bet on that just because I was watching a little bit of the European Tour in the mornings waiting. So that was nice too. So one thing else I want to make sure I do is usually I talk about this, but I want to give you guys full transparency on how I'm doing on the picks from a DFS side. I never want to be sitting there saying, oh, look at how great I'm doing, because I'm not. I mean, there's times where I miss and there's times where I'm really on. I would give this one more of a like B plus. Somewhere I give it a B. Of course, I had Tom Hoagie, as I mentioned, and you can see the stroke gain data up here. He was, so I had a number 1. I had Andrew Putnam, which he was right there on Sunday, right? And then just fell back a little bit. A lot of the guys, right? Hoagie made the putts on the back 9, had that double on number 5, and then really kind of turned it on where, some of the other guys kind of fell back. You had Spieth, of course, that was in the lead for a little bit and just missed some of the shots, didn't make some Spieth-like putts that he typically does. There's Seamus. So the best, I had 169 in my picks. I had Denny McCarthy. Again, leaning more on approach around the green and putters, the guys that we were looking at. Lanto made a little bit of a charge on Saturday. I was hoping a little better on Sunday. Yeah, Mackenzie Hughes. I think the shocker out of all of them that I picked, which, is right here, Tringali. And if you look at his stroke gain data, he lost off the tee, lost on approach, barely broke, broke neutral around the green and putting. Like, I think he shot 6 under or something like that at Spyglass. I think the first, it was brutal. So that was interesting. I haven't seen a round like that or a tournament out of Tringali in a long time like that. You also had Ryan Palmer. Again, I'm just picking, I didn't pick him, but who shot, I think he made a couple back on the last day, but it was like 7 over. He was 9 over going into Sunday. So that also is shocking. But yeah, and the positives, like I said, Vaughn Taylor got you through. Hubbard, Luke Donald, I think that was a great pick. Got you to the weekend. And it was hard, right? I mean, you had probably some people that were upset from a DFS perspective, right? The cut was, I believe, at 4. And so you were thinking, oh, I've got these guys getting through. So I got a 6 of 6. And then once DraftKings actually released, they had an MDF, which we haven't seen in a long time. When they used to have, the Saturday cut, they'd have the first cut after Friday, and they did it, I guess, so they could get the amateurs out there. And they ran three guys or three PGA guys, also with amateurs, and so they ran them off 1 and 10. That was a bit messy, and I don't agree with that they moved to cut the 5 under for that. I mean, I had about 10 teams that I put together for the large GPP. Like I said, from a DFS perspective, I was going to go lighter on this tournament. I wanted to go on the heavier on the bet, and it actually worked out. It actually did well. And I only had one team 6-6 make it, and it ended up like top, 1,500 or something like that. Like nothing, like $35, like nothing big. Okay, so let's get focused now back onto the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Why you are here? Of course, we're still kind of on the West Coast. We're heading over to Scottsdale, Arizona, and we are playing a TPC course. Of course, it's TPC Scottsdale, the stadium course. The event's actually been held at this venue since '87, but it was a different, Waste Management, I think, took it over like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Your architect's Tom Weiskopf. They had a renovation, I believe, in 2014, off the top of my head. It is a par 71, just a little bit over 7,200 yards. And it's kind of, I'd say the odd, quirky thing here is that the fairways, rough, and greens, it's going to say Bermuda. A lot of stuff you see is going to say Bermuda, and it is, but it's not your traditional Bermuda. They overseed it with everything, with POA and rye and fescue. So, the one good news is these greens are immaculate. They run fast, and a lot of long putts happen on this course. But if you try to just go, hey, who's the best Bermuda putters and try to leverage that, I don't think it's really going to help you. You're not, the Sam Burns and I was going to say Russ Henley, but he hasn't been that good on Bermuda. Guys that traditionally we think of good on Bermuda greens. I don't think they have that big of an advantage of any here. So, and you'll see that when we start talking about past winners. Player field size. So we are getting a smaller field. It's not the 156. We are at 132 players. I've seen it top 70 in ties, and I've seen top 65 in ties. So pretty much 50-50. You have a little better chance of getting 6-6 through. Historical cut lines have been anywhere in the past 4 years, even to 2 under. Winning scores, if you kind of average them out over time, is around 17 under. And then, of course, last year, Brooks Koepka was your winner at 19 under, right? He chipped in for Eagle on number 17. I remember it clear as day because, like I said, I bet him, I think he was 40-1. It was crazy odds at the time, but Brooks was showing no form. These are some of the largest greens. So we're back on like Kapalua, very large greens, over 7,000 square feet. What does that mean? It just means you're going to hit a lot more greens than reg, but you're going to have a lot more putts outside of 30 feet. There is quite a bit of sand out here. And when I say sand, I'm talking about specifically sand bunkers. And then there's this kind of waste sand area. But you got 67 bunkers. You got 3 water hazards, which 6 holes actually come into play on these water hazards. I'm guessing they've got to be man-made. But the way they run the holes, you got almost kind of an island green on one of these holes. We'll go over all that. And I already mentioned it. These greens do run fast and firm typically, running at about a 12. And then the defense for this course, it's out in the desert, so wind can definitely kick up. But you got, like I said, I guess if you get a little wayward, you can get penalized. Like I said, there's this desert sand. If you think of the desert with cactus and rocks and whatnot, that's what you're in if you go off the fairway. And then again, I mentioned the water. And then large greens, it could be a tendency to have some more 3 putts here. It's not really shows up in historical data that there's a lot of 3 putts, but, just common sense tells you it can happen. And then just some past notes I've got here from previous years. 6 of the past 7 years, this event has went to a playoff or has been won by Brooks. So, right, Brooks Koepka got his first win here. I believe it was 2015. You can also, it's kind of funny. There is and there isn't really. There's a player type that I'm going to be looking at for this event, but it is shown that, you can do it different ways here. It is not a perfect, hey, like I felt at the AT&T, I felt really good about forget about so much off the tee, just focus on irons around the green and putting. Here, I'm kind of going opposite where I'm focusing off the tee, ball striking. The putter is not as big a concern, but of course it is going to factor in. So anyways, and I kind of already mentioned, I think this course ranks 3rd for the highest percentage of putts of outside of 15 feet made. Again, really nice greens, roll very true. And so that is something that's going to be going in the model. Okay, so we look at some past champions, and this, of course, Brooks Koepka is not in here at 19 under. This was from last year, but if I have it, I show it to you guys. You got Webb Simpson at 17 under, Ricky Fowler. So, if you think of Webb, not, the distance off the tee, but very accurate, was a very good putter. What I see here is guys that are elite ball striking. So that 200 yards out, Webb Simpson does that very well. Ricky Fowler at this time did it very. Gary Woodland does it exceptionally well. Hideki. So you also can look at team no putt, except for Webb. Ricky in his day, could putt, but I would in 2019, I don't think he was putting like we know Ricky could putt. Gary Woodland is a perfect example of no putter. Hideki, no. But what's funny is this is also a course that I see like a Scotty Scheffler or a Tony Finau could have success. And what I mean by that is the putters that they tend to putt better outside of 20 feet on fast greens are those guys. And then if you get them inside like that 5 to 7 foot range, where typically they putt worse. And that's just everything I've seen. And I'd have to go look to see statistics back that up. But everything I know over and over just kind of comes through. Kevin Stadler, an example of a horrific putter but good ball striker. Kyle Stanley. Now this is a long time ago, but that is probably the best summation that this is a ball striking course and don't really worry as much about the putter. But in my model, of course, I still need guys that can do a little bit of putting. And then also I had this from last year, if you're curious, who's had the best scoring average here since 2015. Hideki, of course, has won here twice. Ricky Fowler, past champion, has done very well at this track. John Rahm, Webb, who's won here, and even Matt Kuchar. So just if you're interested. All right, if for some odd reason you've never seen this tournament, if you watch it, you're going to be very happy. I think it's just a cooler tournament to watch. Of course, they got the number, what is it, 16 is the stadium hole, if I remember correct. Yeah, where they built like an arena around there, and that's where the Raucous is. It's kind of like the Happy Gilmore of par threes. It's a lot of fun. The guys have fun with it, right? They'll throw on different jerseys, look at the crowd pumped up. There's just, of course, my opening screen was, some people partying, some not so bad looking ladies there. And then, of course, you had JT crushing that beer at the Ryder Cup is what that picture was. All right, enough about that. Here's those 3 main water hazards. And you can see, like, they worked it out. So 18, I think if I remember correctly, I think it was Hahn. James Hahn is a local to this area. He was in contention, threw it in the water. Like, this does come into play. There's going to be guys that this 18th hole can cause who wins or loses. This is 15, okay, and you do have, like that, as I mentioned, kind of an island green. It's a little, of course, way bigger than TPC Sawgrass, but what's interesting here is going for it in 2 when you have an island greenish. There's a risk reward. I believe it's 11. Don't quote me on this. We'll check it out when I look at the scorecard, but I think 11 is just reachable. There's a par 4 that's, I think, 350 that has water running along it. Of course, there's that risk reward. Usually guys, if they're going to do it, they're going to bomb it out to the right. But yeah, it's probably the Aon risk reward hole on this course. And then again, you can see 13, water coming on the right, and again, water on the right. So water does come into play. All right. Now to get a little better look, here's actually that green on that par 5. I believe what I say, number 15, that I mentioned. You see there's some space to land it. It's not a real, small island green, but when you're trying to hit it from 260, it's a little different ball game. And then again, this just gives you kind of a lay of the land. You can see what I was talking about, all that sand around here, the waste, these trees. I mean, again, this is a par 3, so you should have no issues. But there's a lot of stuff, if you get wayward, that you can get in trouble. All right, so let's take a look at the scorecard, just to give you some ideas. So a lot of long par 4s here. It's kind of a very traditional par 71, right? You got 11 par 4s, 4 par 3s, and 3 par 5s. So not as many par 5s to take advantage of. So you're definitely going to have to make your hay when you do get them. You can see there's 6 birdie hole opportunities. It looks like there's 3 eagle chances. So that is something I put in the model. That shows up number 3, number 13, and number 15. And then the hole that I was talking about that you can drive, let's see if I was right, 11. Nope, that's not it. Number 17. So number 17 is the hole I was talking about that's drivable, that has water in play. Um, and you can see 6 bogey opportunities too. I'd say it's kind of a gentle handshake to start the round out. Right, you got a couple opportunities right off the bat. Um, and then also remember, I think 11 is your toughest hole. Number 1 handicap, of course, again, that long par 4. So back to where the ball striking comes in, you see these 475s, close to 500 yards, par 4s. Those are some, manholes, 490. Those are things that, the guys are going to have to typically be really good ball strikers from 200 plus. And then, as always, I pull the official scorecard, and all I do is just verify that what I'm seeing from past data on this scorecard that I'm sharing with you guys also lines up to what the guys just got issued, and everything is spot on, not off by a yard. I think it's directly on. Okay, so with that said, I always give you guys how do you win at this event, and it's all about looking at the stroke gain analysis ranking. And so I'm putting ball striking number 1. I'm going to weight that the heaviest. Off the tee definitely comes into effect. Approach always, iron play is always going to be top 3. There's never going to be a course that I'm like, irons, don't worry about that. Putting, it does come involved. That's why it's the kind of like the lowest of the 4 main categories. But I'm going to look at guys that avoid 3 putts and outside of 30 feet who's good at it. Weight it a little bit lower, but it's going to be in there. Scrambling does show up here. You are going to get out in these sandy kind of areas and behind this. So I'm going to plug in scrambling. I already mentioned prox to the pin, 150 to 175 shows up the most approach shots at 25%, but then the next one's 200 plus at 21%. So again, as soon as you ever see the proximity of the pins at the higher side, that leads you to know that ball striking is key here. And again, you could also see that with past winners. You got to get stroke gain. I'm going to look for guys who are efficient on the long par 4s. Strokes gain on par 5s that are 5 to 550. That's the majority here. And also you got some long par 3s, which could be a little bit of the defense to this course. 175 to 200 and 200 plus. And then you do need to make birdies and eagles here. Now, you saw the score 1900, 1700 average. So it's not a putting contest. I'm not going to say that. But, this is not a course that you're going to win at 10 under. You're going to have to, I would guess, it's all depending on how the conditions go, but we'll see about 20 under will probably be the winning score. All right, so then always to verify, just to make sure that I'm on track on what I'm up to, I always do, what has the past winners done? Let me look at their stroke gain data. I'm just taking up 2 years of example. I looked at the third, and it wasn't really telling me anything more than what I saw here. And again, I already mentioned off the tee, you can see there's some that have done, I know, as I said, it's kind of a hodgepodge but I would say for a course or a tournament, off the tee here shows up more than I have seen on more other courses. And then, of course, approach, I mentioned that, but really it's ball striking. I mean, you can see tee to green on average, you got to be up there. Around the green, like I said, it's all over. And then putting, here's a perfect example. KH Lee didn't even gain a stroke and ended up, tied for second. But then you can flip it and go look at Carlos Ortiz, what he did. He gained 7.5. You had Xander gain over 6 strokes. So putting shows up. You're going to have to putt well here. But that's a really hard kind of, stroke gain analysis thing to count on, right? I mean, so I'm always going to lean, if I can count on and build the model towards ball striking, I'm going to do that unless, it's some kind of course, maybe like, I don't know, Augusta or whatever. Okay, so with all that said, of course, as usual, I build a model for you guys, and I give you some different looks at some different information that I'm looking at. And the first one I always start at is recent form. If you ask me again, how do I weight it? It's all depending, but recent form for me is, very high up there. I mean, course history comes into play, but I've stated this 1,000 times. You could have been awesome years before, but all of a sudden for the last 2 years, you are just a disaster. Hence, I don't want to say Ricky Fowler, but there's some guys, of course, that their game has really fallen off comparative to where they used to be. So under recent form, you'll see I've got ball striking weighted at 20%. That's the highest weighted factor. Off the tees next, approach, putter. I put in a few things for putting, but, it does give me some ideas. I still want guys that can putt. And specifically on these, more of that 25-foot plus, just to see guys that pop up there. Then there's the par 3s I mentioned, the longer ones, the par 4s, the prox to the pins, and then we got to make birdies and eagles. And you pop that in, you look over the last 12 rounds they played or 3 tournaments, and the guy that comes up number 1, no shocker, John Rahm. Of course, as far as I know, I think he's got to be the most expensive. Of course, even from an odds perspective. Usually I have the betting odds up here for you guys, but this is DraftKings pricing you're seeing. I prefer to talk more on the betting side for the first show, but they didn't have, for whatever reason, at Fantasy National did not have the betting odds up, but they had DraftKings pricing, so I went with that. John Round, the most expensive player on DFS, DraftKings. You got Russell Henley, who should have won the Sony. You got Luke List, who just won the Farmers. You got Tom Hoagie, of course, who just won the AT&T. Austin Eckroat's been playing good golf. So, that's, for me, this stuff is what I like to look at more than anything is who's the guys that are cheaper that are doing the things that I want. And that's Austin Eckroat has been a pretty good play, especially from a showdown perspective. Then you got Hideki, of course, the winner at the Sony. You got Mav, who, has played decent golf, hasn't had a win. Corey Connors, I think he's the perfect prototype for this course. Keith Mitchell had a pretty good showing at the AT&T. You got Hudson, who won, was it the Amex, right? The American Express. You got Patrick Cantlay, who, of course, is number 4 in the world. Emiliano Grillo, I think this is a great fit for where his game used to be, but he's been so bad that I don't know. I'm going to have to go look into Emiliano. I mean, I don't know where his odds are from a betting perspective, but it might not be a terrible bet. Troy Merritt, right, who made that crazy surge on Sunday at the AT&T. If you were playing Showdown on the finale round, if you didn't have Troy Merritt, you probably didn't get paid because I was one of them. Troy Merritt has popped up here and there. Funny enough, I think the John Deere is actually a good representation of some guys to also look at. I didn't have it as a comp course, but next year I definitely will. Because some of the guys that I saw popping up there also popped up at the John Deere. Scotty Scheffler, his odds right now, at least on DraftKings, I think it's 22. Either 22 or 28. Put it this way, way too low for Scotty Scheffler. And I did go look at Odds Checker. You can get it at better places. I think Bet Rivers has them at like 40 to 1. So if you can get him 35, 40 to 1, make that bet. I think this is a really good spot for Scotty Scheffler. And then, of course, Victor Hovland's winning every tournament he plays in. But I do believe he played over. Nope, I take that back. He should have been back already. So he should be okay and fresh. So he'll, I see no reason why Victor Hovland couldn't top 5 or not win this tournament. All right, if you want to know some guys that have done well at this venue and tournament past few years, again, the one that kind of was interesting, I thought was Brandon Grace that popped up. But, of course, Bubba Watson's had a couple top 5s here. JT's done well here. You got Brooks has won here twice. Harold Varner, but he's coming back over, right? So he's going to maybe have some jet lag. But, again, another guy that would fit this venue perfectly. Molinardi had a good showing, at least a couple rounds at the Amex. Brennan Steele. I don't always get Streelman and Steele mixed up. I do. But I think Steele's got some pop in his bat. He could be an interesting play. Ches Reavie, a local to the area, and has shown up here in the past. And, of course, Webb past winner. And then Carlos Ortiz, I believe he ended like runner-up or, top 5 for sure last year. All right, so if you also want to know who some of the best ball strikers that are in this field, no shocker. And again, this is looking over the past 12 rounds or 3 tournaments, no filters on. Luke List, number 1, and he is just an elite ball striker. Siwoo Kim is not on here. I already threw a bet on him. Why I could Aaron Wise. Just giving you guys some longer out guys that have been great ball strikers. Hudson Swafford, of course, been a great ball striker. Eckroat's been showing up there. Corey Connors. I mean, if you look at this list, right, this is the ball strikers elite and not the best putter. I mean, really probably lately Matsuyama's been putting a lot better. Hovland's been putting better. Henley wasn't an excellent putter and then kind of fell down a little bit with the putting. I think Troy Merritt's not that bad of a putter. I'd have to look at his stats, but off the top of my head, I don't think he's that bad. And on that note, who are the best putters? And I didn't just do who's the best Bermuda putters because, again, I don't really feel like these roll like true Bermuda. I don't even think the grain shows up like typical Bermudas because of all the overseeding. And I did read that they've had colder temperatures in the area, so their overseeding has not really taken the way it usually does. What does that mean? The rough should not be as rough. Usually, if you heavy overseed, the rough becomes more thicker. But also then again, I don't know what that's going to do, if anything, to the greens or whatever. But long story short, here's the guys who make a lot of putts or very close to good lags outside of 25 feet. And then this is no shocker, like, Danny McCarthy, great putter. Mito is one of the guys that I'm really high on this week. He could get his first PGA victory, right? Of course, he won a bunch on the Corn Ferry to get him here. Wyndham Clark, awesome off the tee. Awesome putter. Was one of my picks last week. I'll probably be on him again, especially at 6,600. Kevin Tway, Kelly Craft, side note, I need to put this in my notes. Of course, he had a really good showing at the AT&T, and I forgot that Kelly Craft, the year that Spieth won, which I believe was 2017, the AT&T, Kelly Craft was actually either in a playoff with him or was like a stroke behind him. All I remember is that he did have some history there, and I'm just noting that more for AT&T. And we got to see him have a decent round, but not on Kelly Craft. Brian Gay would be the last guy I would ever play here. Harry Higgs, I think, is interesting. I already got a bet on him. I don't think I put him on my favorite bets. I think he's 300 to 1, something like that. And for 2 points, I mean, he hits it off the tee. I don't say he's super long, but he's long enough. But he can get super streaky around the green, super streaky with the putter, pretty good with the iron. So he's interesting. And then you also got Adam Schenk here, who, again, great ball striker. And then at the Farmers, if I remember correctly, he was up there either leading or close to after day 2 and then kind of fell apart on the weekend. But, again, he's been nipping, so I think he could be a good bet. I don't even know where he's at yet. I have to look at him. I have not put a bet on him yet. There's my Adam Long that I was on a bit earlier in the season, but yeah, I mean, he could do well here. I think he's even had either some correlation here. He's done decent here in the past. We'll have to take a look at Adam Long. All right, so I mentioned comp courses, and when I say comp courses, this is either I see correlation or similar kind of courses. The number one, WGC, FedEx St. Jude, TPC Southwind. So a few of these are TPC courses. Well, actually 4 of them. So you've got TPC Southwind. Of course, you got TPC Sawgrass. You got TPC Deer Run, and you got TPC Twin Cities. So all those have similarities, some similar in distance, par, maybe some different greens. But long story short, you've seen a lot of crossover. The guys have done well here, has done well at the Players. WGC Mexico Concession, where they played last year. There's a bit of correlation there I liked, and how the course played. And then Valspar, seen some correlation there, and I think that's a good comp course. Why am I telling you guys this? So when I'm doing my picks, you're going to see me plugging these courses in just to see how the guys have done in these. And yeah, I'm going to leverage comp course history a little bit to give me that kind of final nudge, yes or no. With that said, if you plug those in and find out who's the guys who've done well at some of these courses over the last 3 tournaments they played at them, Max Homa, which is kind of interesting. I would have never guessed Max would come up number 1. He's had a decent showing here once at Waste Management. It was like 2 years ago. But a good ball striker, kind of on and off of the putter. He's 100 to 1. I don't know if I threw a bet on him or not, to be honest. I looked at him, but I don't remember. And if I don't remember that, I must have not. There's Mito again, pops up. Trying to see anybody else that kind of correlate. I mean, there's Keegan, who's a great, ball striker, terrible putter. Finau shows up. Doug Gim, pretty good ball striker, terrible putter. Luke List, Duffner, the king of the long irons, horrific putter. So yeah, that all kind of comes to fruition of the guys that I would think would be in there. So there you go. All right, and then also just for your own knowledge, and this might not be all the guys, but if we're going to a new setting, I like to tell you, if I know the guys that are local, so guys that either maybe belong here or played a bit of golf here, played college golf here, live in the area now. You got Matt Jones, you got Sabatini, of course, John Rahm, which is well known, Ches Reavie, Kevin Streelman. You got Hahn, who did well here last year, Brandon Hagee, who is a local, and Andrew Putnam, which you might have heard a bit. They were talking about at the AT&T. And then, of course, Joel Damon, who for a bit there, I think from a showdown perspective, he was the best play on Sunday from a pricing perspective. He kind of fell back and started missing some easy putts. Not easy, but missing putts. I don't remember exactly length. I feel like one was really easy. But Joel Damon started falling back, had a couple of bogeys on the back 9. But he was right there with a chance to win for a moment. So there's your locals. If you're just curious from a betting perspective or guys you want to play, I do believe, hey, if you're sleeping in your own bed, if you played here a lot, you practice here, you are going to have an advantage. I mean, and you can see some of these guys that showed up. Reavie showed up here. Hahn showed up here. I'm trying to see, of course, Rahm. So there is some guys in this group that have done well here. All right, with that said, I'm going to give you my favorite bets. Now, of course, I want you to remember, this is first pass, and I'm looking at the guys I'm not looking at the guys, the top, the low end or the low odds. I go through the high odds guys first, and I want to find out who I want to get my money on quickly before the odds start dropping. That's because typically what I see, especially on DraftKings Sportsbook, is that they price the top 20 guys like really crappy. That's my perception. But they do give good odds on the upper guys, but then those start to fall, and then they'll give you better odds. It seems like right before the tournament starts on the better players that are in the field. I guess the simplest way to put it. So with that said, the guys that I wanted to get on early, Adam Scott, who I heard, I don't even know what he shot, but I think he's played in a couple events overseas and it's done pretty well. Now, when I say that, I think it's like top 10s, top 20s. So I guess in the fall he must have played a bit. Anyways, long story short, he's 50-1. I threw a bet on that. Again, great ball striker, really good on long par threes, and can get hot with a putter, right? He's a streaky putter. He's either bad or good, but he can get streaky. So I like that bet. Abraham Answer, I didn't really come to this, but when I saw 55-1, and then I started to put together like one of my top comparable courses is TPC Southwind, where they played the WGC St. Jude, where he just won, right? Hideki was in a playoff, Burns. So there's some correlation all right there. Abraham has not been playing great golf, and I think the last time I had anything to do with him, I picked him, what was it? I don't know, was it the Amex? And he missed a cut. So, but you got to forget, almost like a golfer when you hit a bad shot. With these guys, you do have to forget sometimes what just transpired and go with what you're seeing again. Abraham Answer typically is elite tee to green and is not a terrible putter. He's a decent putter. He hasn't been as good of a putter, but really his irons have been off. And that's where Abraham needs, if he gets his irons back to what we're used to, he could do very well here. I already mentioned Mito Pereira popping up all over the place. Makes sense. Pretty elite ball striker, got distance, and has good putter from outside. A bit like a Scotty Scheffler, where I think he struggles more inside 10 feet than he would outside 10 feet. Then Henrik Norlander, 300-1. I mean, this was, I don't even think I threw this bet down before I even did analysis. Matthew Neesmith, who also had a good round one here last year, I believe he's like 250-1. I threw a bet on him. But, guys, again, that fall under that great ball striking, not a good putter. And then last but not least, Brandon Hagee, he's popped here or there. Typically not, probably a better round one leader than he is an outright to win. But he is a local. He does have some pop in his bat. And why not? I've seen it. He can get streaky. And for 400-1, of course, I'm not putting a lot on that. But put a few shillings on it is where I'm at. So that is my favorite early bets. And again, all leaning towards the guys with the high odds. I haven't really dove in. I'm going to kind of wait and see how the odds work out. Like I said, I'm interested in Scotty Scheffler, but I need to sign up a different account because DraftKings right now has got him, like I said, at 22 or 28 or whatever. Not good odds. There's better odds out there. So if you're interested in betting Scotty, even Finau, he hasn't been playing well, and I'm a little sour on Finau. But, if you can find him like a 40, 50-1, might not be a terrible bet. All right, that's it. With that said, that's going to wrap up my preview show. As always, guys, thank you for spending some time with me. And if you click that like button, share it with anybody else that you want, or share it anywhere, share it on Twitter, share it wherever. If you've not subscribed, you're checking me out, and maybe you're just giving me a spin to see how things go, and you like what you like, click that subscribe button. I'd appreciate that. We just hit over 1,000 subscribers. All right, with that said, I am super excited for this tournament. As I mentioned, my favorite. I'm sure you guys are too. I think everybody who's a big golf fan really enjoys this. We got full fans back, so that's cool. And let's go get another winner, guys. All right, I'll talk to you later. Take care.